On my entrepreneurial journey, I knew there was a time I had to take a step back. Perhaps you're at that time. Perhaps that time was a long time ago and you've overrun that time and you're still pushing and going hard. Just like a car needs to be filled with gas, you use the gas, you got to go fill up again. In the same way, our physical self, our mental self, our emotional self, our spiritual self, it all needs a time to rejuvenate, to get our gas tank back. How do we do that? Especially with all the demands on our time, demands on our choice making, demands on our thinking organism and mechanism of action. The first thing that I had to do was literally carve out 1 hour a day minimum. That was my first step to win back this tranquility which I wished to have deeper in my life and the source of, if you will, transcendent power. So I remember I was in my 20s and my mentor said, okay, you got to carve out an hour to only do sadhana. And I said, what does sadhana mean? And sadhana means spiritual practice, the practice of elevating your consciousness through meditation, through self-inquiry, through removing yourself from all the pulls of the world. And I said, 1 hour, geez, I can barely sit for 10 minutes before I got to do something. I'm antsy. I've got a lot of force, a lot of energy inside myself. He said, you've got to do an hour. All these schemes of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, build yourself up, those are remedial. They're like really excuses. Because if you're actually committed, he said, you've got to start at an hour. And so I did. I said, okay, I'm going to make the commitment to carve out 1 hour a day for my sadhana. So I asked him, what does that mean now? How do I dive into my sadhana? It's a very esoteric term for me. He says, what is the thing that brings your heart the most joy and freedom? What is the thing that brings your heart most joy and freedom? And for me, it was reading. Reading was such a way to fill my tank at that time. And he said, dedicate yourself to reading only the most nurturing and nourishing of books, and only the ones that are not directly related to any mission or vision or outcome that you want. Only ones that are there for the pleasure of your own being, of your soul, of your happiness, of your freedom. And I went, well, I like purposeful books. What about, no, they should be just ones that evoke pleasure and joy and your carefreeness. Your books that bring you in touch with this present now moment. Not ones that get you to reflect on the past, or ones that get you to scheme and create goals and visions of the future, but ones that entertain you in the now. And I said, okay, I'm going to look for those books. So I went through my bookshelf and I found those books, the ones perhaps I hadn't read in a while, or I read with some type of intent to have an outcome on them. And I said, okay, I sifted all through those. And then I started finding books. And you know what the first one was? It was one that I had as a teenager. And it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And some of us know the story. Charlie finds a golden ticket, which allows him to go to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and the magical story unfolds. And it was interesting that I chose a magical story, an unbelievable story, an impossible story of woe to victory, being able to, because in that sacred moment that I gave that hour of my time to, I was being replenished not only from relaxation, but I was being replenished at a child level. The inner child in me was being replenished. A new playfulness came to me. A sense of magic and happiness comes when I read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Part of my mind was fighting it, going, this is not going anywhere, I'm wasting time, I could be doing 10, 20 other things, but I disciplined myself for that hour. I did it every single day, and I did that practice for about 3 months before I felt, you know what, I'm done with reading. What else should I do? I approach my mentor and he says, okay, reading feels good. You feel fulfilled in that? That's what brings you joy and brings you pleasure and the sense of freedom? I go, yes. He goes, what next brings you sense of joy and freedom? For me, it was studying philosophy, spirituality, reading about that. He goes, well, how do you do that in a way that's not intellectual, but in a way that brings your body into that? Well, I said, I love martial arts and doing forms, kung fu forms we do in martial arts, which are pattern movements, which bring about a lot of presence and attention while I'm working on my body. He says, well, do that for an hour a day, slow, and nothing else. Only dedicate yourself to what brings you pleasure, joy, and freedom at that time. Fight against the urge to drop it earlier, to go back to your doing and work. And so I did that discipline intensely, and I kept doing it for a while. And when that felt its course had run dry, and then I asked the next one, what brings me greater pleasure and freedom and joy, which has no direct outcome or meaning into my outwardly business life. I've continued that practice. I've lengthened the time of that practice. And what happens now is I choicefully have made it so that more of my life is less work-oriented, but very compact when I am. So I'm going to invite you into this journey, this path of going from doing to less doing, more honoring, more enjoying the pleasures of this here and now moment, the pleasures of the richness of life as it stands now, as well as enjoying the power of creation that business brings, and the energy and the vivaciousness and the roller coaster of life that brings. The yin and yang in the Chinese philosophy is a circle which has an inner wave within it. So it looks like the yin is chasing the yang and the yang is chasing the yin. But what's interesting is no matter how yang you go, strong, forwarding force, the heart of the yang is yin, the soft, the receptive, the side that I said that you give 1 hour a day to. Give the rest of your 8-10 hours per day fully into your path of direction and achievement. But remember, give yourself the heart of it, the yin, and you will come into the natural balance, a natural harmony. Greater success will happen spontaneously. And now you'll be not living a life always for the future. You'll be living a life from the richness of this now freedom and fulfillment you have. Enjoy. Enjoy for a lifetime. You deserve it.